Well, well, well. A whole year of Legions Imperialis, and what a year it's been. In 1 year, I've played more actual games of Warhammer than I have since the OG Fantasy got end-timesed. And goodness, it feels good to be excited about a game system again. Indeed, having lived through the great specialist games cull of the early 2010s, it's been delightful to see so many return. Yet, of all the specialist games that have made triumphant returns with varying degrees of triumph, from the recrudescent Blood Bowl and Necromunda to the just for occasional Christmas Space Hulk and everything in between, it is this reimagining of 1989's Space Marine that has really captured my imagination. And just like its original iteration, this was heralded by the John the Baptesque Adeptus Titanicus, originally 1988, this time 2018. A 5-year test drive for Games Workshop to get back into epic scale before Legions Imperialis finally hit the shelves in winter 2023, a whole year ago. And so, to celebrate this milestone, I thought I would look at the highlights and lowlights of this first year. 5 of the top moments of this nascent system, and 5 of the perhaps less well-received elements. Why don't you scribble in the comments section below what your own favourite moment of this first year of Legions is, and take a guess as to whether it made my list. Then, when my list is over, comment with your thoughts on it. Was it a good list? Or was it terrible, and I should never list anything ever again? Why not argue amongst yourselves? That sounds like it would be good for engagement. Anyhow, on to my 5th worst thing about Legions that happened in the first year. I have to start with 5th worst if I want to alternate and end on a high. That's just maths, I'm afraid. 5th worst thing, the initial delay. Long gone are the days where we would get a reveal years in advance. They tried that with the Sisters and Old World releases, and between reducing our patience to 0 and dealing with the impact of patient 0, the last few years have been being shown a preview, us getting immediately excited, and then 2 weeks later it showing up in the Sunday pre-order slot. That's just what we've got used to. That's what our TikTok-addled, immediate endorphin, instant gratification of world has become. So, when in July 2023 a new infantry-based epic system was announced, we were all eager to start playing it before the end of the summer. However, the old world got delayed, so everything else got delayed. And unfortunately, this did have an impact on that initial hype. Everyone was excited to get their hands on some modern epic scale product in August, less so by December. It did mean the game started with a bit of a whimper rather than a bang, but start it still did, and in the words of Mahatma Gandhi, probably better late than never. 5th best thing, hard and fast releases. I almost put this in the negatives, but who am I kidding? My bank account wasn't going to be any healthier if they'd spread these releases out. I just would have brought more of the same kits. So yeah, a side effect of the later release of the core book meant then each new expansion book was delayed and then squished into a much shorter period of time. This should be the 1.5-year anniversary-ish of the game, and 4 expansions in that time doesn't sound quite as silly. 1 every 4.5 months-ish. What we ended up with is 4 expansions in under a year, 1 a quarter. That's £120 worth of book before even counting the models. Is this too much? Yeah, probably. Why am I counting it as the 5th best thing? Because I love books and models and new releases. After feeling let down by the initial delay, the constant releases have kept me engaged and excited for the system. We've tripled the number of core armies since day 1, where we only had the Astartes and the Auxilia. Now we have the Mechanicum, Dark Mechanicum, Questoris Familia and Collegia Titanica as distinct armies, as well as being able to ally and mix and match. The bonded Cybernetica support formations are also incredible as a free download, giving an extra, more flexible, non-allied attachment for each army that really excited me, even if it didn't excite your viewers quite as much. Even if it was just a cynical ploy to encourage Space Marine players to buy robots, who cares? More options, more models available, only good things. Yes, it's not as good as a more spaced out release program, but given the initial delays, it sure did help boost morale straight off the bat. 4th worst thing, stock and scalping. The first wave of Legions was in demand. Not just in the nice, oh look, the game is doing well kind of demand, in the no one can find the kits they want and eBay is full of dickheads kind of demand. In particular, the first wave of army cards were particularly infamous for selling for many times their retail price. Sure, eventually it all came back, and they even added the usually while stocks last army cards into the regular stock to counter the silly scalpers. But a lot of this was too little, too late. Especially when there was a gamut of existing Aeronautica units, and for some reason only the Thunderhawk was re-released at launch. Aeronautica boxes were going for silly money right before any of the tournaments, as people were desperate for some much-needed air power in their armies. There was no reason all plastic Titans and planes couldn't have been made immediately available. Or just keep selling the Aeronautica kits. I'm sure people wouldn't mind getting some Orc or Eldar planes bundled in if it meant they could get a Xiphon Interceptor for less than the price of a kidney. Again, it's much better now with only a few of the more niche resin units out of stock, as is often the way with niche resin. But for the first half of Legion's life thus far, temporarily out of stock was basically a meme. For a game already at risk of being completely overtaken by 3D printing and existing Epic Armageddon models, this certainly didn't help. Fourth best thing, the first year of Warhammer World events. This year marked my first ever pilgrimage to Warhammer World in Nottingham, in over a quarter of a century of the hobby. Yes, I may look young and sprightly, but I'm no spring chicken. I'm fast entering my late 30s, and I've been doing this hobby since I was a preteen. But in all that time, I never felt the urge to visit the great Midlands monastery of model making that is Games Workshop HQ, Warhammer World. But I did for Legions. Though I missed out on the initial sales due to how quickly the tickets sold out, as people dropped out a couple of weeks before, presumably as they realised how difficult it was going to be to locate the aforementioned Xiphon Interceptors, I was able to snag a ticket and attend a tournament of over 30 Nationth Legion players, all learning the ropes. And what a fantastic bunch of gamers they were, everyone from the fully dedicated to the modelling aspect to the sweatiest of Rhino rush lists. The variety is what these events are about. The full range of Warhammer players represented at the first event for Legions, and then its second later in the summer. Meta was made, internet friends briefly became real friends, and it really highlights the community that is being built around this silly system. I've been part of the sweatiest Warhammer fantasy communities and the silliest of Silver Tower adventure parties, and genuinely, the Legions community so far seems to be the best of both worlds. Long may it continue. Third worst thing, the internet being internety. When the first preview proofs, that's a hard sentence to say, when the first preview proofs were sent off to the preview proof guys, the internet was ablaze as if Games Workshop had just introduced the first female Space Marine and she was a lesbian named Chimera with a DEI chin. Because, if you can believe such a thing, there were some visible undercuts on some of the Space Marine infantry. Now a year later, that seems so silly. We've all seen models in person and they're all incredibly detailed, and what cannot be overstated in light of the very much not one-piece Mechanicum infantry, one piece. Multiple different poses, pretty much mirroring the 28mm kits. All a single piece with so much detail that I've made a moderately successful YouTube channel about kit bashing them into recognisable characters. And everyone was up in arms about some undercuts. I did Epic the first time around, when every model was identical and all facing forward, holding their guns so close to their chest that their heartbeat would set off the trigger. These models are incredible. They've always been incredible. No, plastic injection moulding is never going to get you the same detail as resin print or sculpting. So, these are one-piece plastic models, and the internet exploded, as it is wont to do. Thankfully, there has been much less of that attitude since, surrounding the later releases. And good riddance too. Silly, silly internet. Third best thing, battle groups. Of the 6 armies now in the game, 5 of them have their own dedicated battle groups. These battle groups are big boxes of RRP 95 to 110 pounds, containing 125 to 160 pounds RRP worth of kits. In addition, except for the Knight and Titan version of these are all available from third-party sellers, often with an extra 20% off or so. This proves to be an incredibly good way to build an army fast and relatively cheap. The big scary, oh my goodness, look how expensive an army can be articles pretty much left in the dust. Especially as the Knight battle group is only a hair off a full 2,500 point army by itself. Not necessarily a competitive army, but an army nonetheless. and a good looking one too with all those kits. These battle groups are the go-to first purchase for every army, and the only downsides are that A, there isn't a Dark Mechanicum one yet, and B, they're only officially while stocks last. But on the plus side, stocks are lasting, so get them while you can. And then get some more, also while you can. Second worst thing, the drop-off. Now there are a number of things I'm not. A statistician, someone with insider knowledge of Games Workshop sales figures, a small off-duty Czechoslovakian traffic warden. But what I am is someone who can read a room, and though I do not want it to be true, it does seem to be the case that the interest in the game has petered off a little bit as the year has gone on. The Mechanicum release I thought was going to be huge, especially with Dark Mech reveal, but it does seem to have fallen a little flat. Again, not a statistician, looking at my own channel, all the Mechanicum videos do barely half the number of the other armies. Even the Auxilia do better. Sure, the Astartes still remain king in my own little algorithmy box, but I really thought the Dark Mech would be bigger overall. Instead, they were barely a footnote in the Kiltini pre-order this week. And this is a shame. I don't know whether it's just the honeymoon period wearing off as it's near Christmas and people are saving their pennies until after Jesus' birthday so they can go spend their Christmas money on Dark Mechanicum, as Christ himself did, I believe, 2,000 odd years ago. But in any case, compared to the Great Slaughter and even Talon, the most recent release seems muted. I theorised that the free Mechanicum formations were perhaps an attempt to shift some boxes that were otherwise underselling, but at the same time it seems hugely grass is greener to be reminiscing about how awful it was when there was no stock and no one could get the kits they wanted, now to be complaining that there's too much stock and it's not selling out like it used to only months ago. I don't know. I hope this is just a release cycle going in waves, and with the next lot of releases we'll see another uptick in energy. It's just a shame that it hasn't held up as it looked like it might have done earlier in the year. Second best thing, legionbuilder.app. Okay, I'll use this as a general creator community shout out. The Goonhammer reviews and loadout guides are permanently bookmarked on every internet accessing device I own. Olden Demon and Guerrilla Miniature Gaming are excellent ambassadors for the game in their bigger channels, whilst newer creators dedicated to this game, like yours truly, and the excellent Tacticae Imperialis, who you should go check out if you like Auspex Tactics style minimalist discussion videos. I will be watching their career with great interest. Main Legions Discord and the Adeptus Titanicus podcast, Maximal Fire and their Discord, the online community really is shaping up. But all of the rest of us aside, the absolute goat of this first year of Legions Imperialis is JWTC and legionbuilder.app. I've spent more time on Legion Builder than I have in the actual rulebooks. It is just about the perfect army building resource. It's user-friendly, the creator welcomes feedback and implements almost everything suggested on their Discord. You can make a user and access your lists from any device. There are links to the right page of the rulebook, so if you click a special rule. There are damage calculators, so you can compare every weapon loadout against every other unit in the game. And new units and formations are added what seems like instantly. This tool is the benchmark for every community tool from now on. Battlescribe is dead, long live the king. This tool is so good I almost put it at number 1, and only didn't because it seemed harsh on the game to put a fan-made tool above official material, but honestly it could be. If you don't use Legion Builder already, start. If you do, go buy the creator a coffee. First worst thing. Errata are hardly knower. Right, the first worst thing with the game right now, unfortunately, is a biggie. It's the rules. It's a new game, so I'm not expecting a balance patch to buff knights and nerf missiles or anything yet. Not even all the units we're expecting are out yet, so the meta is going to develop, and I'm happy taking the good with the bad and the meta and balance slates as they come. My only issue is with the complete lack of FAQ and errata. Other games and systems have released with errata. Now, this wouldn't be an issue if it just meant that the book was perfect out of the gate and didn't need an errata, because every rule is so clear and concise and well edited already. But unfortunately, that's not the case. As fun as games are, there's always a weird rules interaction everyone on the table and the next door table have to gather around to discuss and come to a consensus before carrying on. Whether it's the interaction between falling back and retreating and morale checks in combat, or why iron shields are so invariably pointless, genuinely it just needs a clean up. The game is marketed like Warhammer in a post-Forge World world, but it reads like a first edition Imperial armour supplement. A bit of an edit and spit and polish and it would battle with the best of them. But the fact you have several creators and community members working on rewriting the rules, not to change them, but just to make them intelligible, is not a good sign. Just give us an FAQ or errata to clear up some of the more obvious jank, and then we can wait for a balanced slate for the rest. In the meantime, it does leave even the funnest of games with a little niggle in the back of the head going, are we sure we played that right? First best thing, Dark Mechanicum release. Well, the community as a whole may not have been as enamoured as I, but god damn, for me this is the most exciting Warhammer release in decades. Dark Mechanicum Walkers, a whole book dedicated to the apostates of Mars, epic scale Mechanicum transfers, Dark Mechanicum Walkers. I'm so glad we're getting these before Christmas. Heck, some of the previewy influencers have already got them, and they're looking so sexy. I cannot wait to get going on my own. Alas, I am not yet one of the chosen few who get stuff early, but you can help me become one by liking this video and subscribing to my channel, and someday, friends, someday I may be. So those are my highlights and lowlights from 2024, full of epic scale wargaming. How do they compare to your choices, which you definitely wrote below? Are there any you hugely disagree with? Anything you think I missed? Honestly, I'm just glad to be epic scale wargaming again in the year of our Lord 2024. It's been too long, but here's to a 2025 of epic scale wargaming too, and the many years beyond that. Thank you to all of you for coming with me on this very silly journey, and especially, as always, to the sexiest people of all, my Patreons, and all of those of you who sub and like and comment and share this channel and, ambassador me to other people. It's silly, silly hobby that we do, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Peace and love, and of course, keep on lip bashing.